Good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me. We've got people still joining us, so just pause for a second while everybody gets their screens up and make sure that everything's working at your ends as well. Welcome to another technology webinar from IT Health. Today we're going to be looking at strengthening NHS ransomware resilience. Going to run for about an hour. Got a few colleagues with me as well on the call. Hopefully my slides are going to transition. Most of the content and the discussion today is going to come from myself and Glenn. If you want to say a quick hello, Glenn, then we'll do a proper intro later on.
Hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you very much. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We are recording the session. We will send out a recording of the session, the slides afterwards. So look out for those. If there's any questions you've got, please pop them in the chat. I'll be monitoring those while Glenn's going through most of the content. And there is a question at the end. If you would be happy to answer that as you leave, it just helps us make sure we get these better shaped and deliver them better for you. So that's just the housekeeping. So we are joined by other colleagues on the call as well today, who we may field some of the more technical questions. Hopefully we'll get plenty of questions. Please don't be shy. Lob them in the chat. I'm just going to do a little bit of a quick intro in terms of IT Health. You may know of us. We've been around for a long time, over 30 years now, serving the NHS. And we've kind of developed a bit of a niche for ourselves in terms of either developing or bringing complementary technology to bear to help you do the job that you need to do in an ever growing and more complicated environment, particularly from a ransomware and a cyber perspective. Some of you will know about our IT Health dashboard. That's deployed in over 150 NHS trusts now. But again, today we're going to focus in on Agger. I'm not going to steal Glenn's thunder, but it's important that we continue to look for complementary technology to both what's happening from a national perspective and also from what you're trying to do locally. And it's important that shows value for money and does the job that we want it to do. There's a few other partners there that we work with on a regular basis. And in terms of our solutions and services, you can see we cover quite a bit of ground, but it's mainly in that cyber assurance compliance environment that we spend 95% of our time. I'm going to stop now. I knew mine would be quite a brief intro. Again, I was going to remind people to please keep throwing their questions in. Glenn's going to now share. But before he does that, I just kind of want to just give you a little bit of an intro to Glenn. Some of you may have seen him. He's been present on the TV and the radio quite a few times recently. I caught him on BBC and some other channels as well, talking obviously a lot about what we're going to talk about today, about the ever-present realization that ransomware is a problem for us and we need to deal with it. And how do we deal with it? We were just talking about an event that Glenn's been at over the weekend, but he's been at Black Hat. And I have to say, sorry, Glenn, but probably one of the best presenters I've seen for a long, long time. So I've set you up now. But if you want to share your screen, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Chris. And of course, thank you to all of you for joining, for giving up your time this morning to come and listen to our presentation. As Chris said, my name is Glenn Wilkinson, CEO of Agger Labs. And today we're talking ransomware, hacking, hacker gangs, and most importantly, what you can do about it to keep yourselves safe. So my background is in what we call offensive cybersecurity, as is most of the team. We've worked for collective decades as ethical hackers, white hat hackers, reverse engineers, being paid to break into systems, to bypass protections, and to help keep our clients safe by finding vulnerabilities before the bad guys do. We've all spoken at Black Hat, DEF CON, Zero Nights, everything in between. We've delivered offensive cyber training for law enforcement, for military. In short, we know the hacker world above and below. We have deep threat intelligence into the underground. We know how those organizations and underground hackers and communities work, and we have close relationships with defenders above the ground. We built Agger out of a frustration of clients being hit by ransomware and existing tools just not up to the job. We initially created Agger as a bit of a proof of concept, as an experiment. Can we go toe-to-toe with the big players and create something that stops ransomware dead in its tracks? The long story short is we did. We've built our tool, Agger Labs, a lightweight agent that runs on your endpoint. And we do one thing and we do it well. We just stop ransomware. And ransomware is a serious enough problem that we can have a dedicated tool to do it. And to be quite frank, we are the best solution out there. we do one thing and we do it right. We just stop ransomware. But more about the specifics of Agger later. I want you to imagine something. It's Monday morning, you've just arrived at work, you're about to get on with some very important, as it seems on the screenshot, x-rays and emails and NHS data. Before you can even have a sip of your coffee and get on with your busy day, boom, big red scary message. All of your files have been encrypted, and if you ever want to see them again, you're going to have to pay up an awful lot of Bitcoin. And it's not just your laptop, it's every machine in the hospital, in the trust, and possibly across the network. Unfortunately, this is not some dystopian future. This is the reality of doing business in the year 2026. Ransomware is, I would say, an existential risk to any modern organization, private or public sector, and it seems to only be getting worse. The average ransomware attack costs an organization £3.5 million. That's from a report by IBM, cost of a data breach. And that's before you even pay the ransom itself. That's just the ancillary costs, the damage of downtime and lost reputation, all those things that come around it. The NCSC, in its annual review last year, highlighted that there were 429 cyber incidents in the preceding year. Of those 429, 204 were classified as nationally significant. Furthermore, 18 of that were categorized as what they call highly significant, and that means having a serious impact on central government in the UK, essential UK services such as the NHS, and large population segments or the economy. Essentially, 18 attacks could or did do serious damage to the UK way of life. And the NCSC went on to identify ransomware as the most pressing cyber threat to the UK. So the NCSC is taking this very seriously, and we should all sit up and pay attention. Of course, in the private sector, it's hard to go a day without seeing some headline about either a data breach, a ransomware attack, or some combination of those things. The poor old folks at Jaguar Land Rover, Marks and Spencer's, and others. And of course, for those on the webinar, I'm sure you are no stranger to seeing headlines of healthcare, either private or public, being targeted by hackers. And the interesting part, or perhaps the scary part, is we only see the big headlines. In the private sector, there are so many organizations that go out of business because they can't pay the ransoms, or in healthcare, incidents that aren't reported don't make it to front page news or may not even reach you internally. This graph here, this is a ICO list of healthcare ransomware incidents reported to them that impacted patient data. This is all healthcare, of course. It includes third-party suppliers, but the point is it's happening all the time, not just in the headlines, and you may not even see half of these incidents that are going on. So, deep breath. Why is this happening? Why does ransomware exist? Why is it so prolific, profitable, and pervasive? It exists for one simple reason. Ransomware works. It's low risk, has far reach, and businesses are more dependent than ever on their digital systems. Criminals will lock down systems, demand payment, and they often get it. It's almost a simple, trivial recipe. And I would say, especially in healthcare, where downtime can literally put lives at risk, and attackers know there's that pressure. These modern ransomware gangs, they're targeting companies or organizations, or in your case, healthcare providers, where they know they can turn those screws and put pressure on you to pay up. That's why they target big retail companies to get front page news, or airlines or healthcare providers, because they know there'll be extra pressure to get paid. And it's become a business, essentially. It's a dark, scalable, and sadly quite effective business. Brief aside, I would like you to take a moment and maybe drop into the chat. Can you guess when the first instance of ransomware came to light? I'll give you a quick moment to drop in the chat while I have a sip of water. And I'll give you a clue. It's somewhere between the year 1900 and 2025. Can't see the chat, but well done to anyone who guessed the 80s. So 1989 was the first instance of ransomware. And back then it was called a malware extortion attack. It's called the AIDS Trojan, was this particular one, distributed at a conference by a chap called Joseph Pop on a floppy disk, if anyone remembers floppy disks. Put it in your machine when you get home. On the 50th reboot, this big red message saying, hey, your files are corrupt or something. If you want to get them back, put a check in the post and send it to me, Mr. Joseph Pop. Not a great idea. Police came along, of course, kicked down his door and arrested him. But the idea was there. Files can be held to ransom and entice you to pay to get them back. A very brief timeline of ransomware. So that was 1989. the initial idea was laid. 2006, GP code, they figured out the weaknesses in the original variant from 89. They used asymmetric encryption and they distributed in a kind of spear phishing or botnet type method. And payment was demanded via a slightly dodgy bank called Liberty Reserve based out of Costa Rica. So pseudo-anonymous, but still a physical building. But of course, law enforcement shut that down pretty quickly. The big seminal moment for ransomware was 2008. We all remember back then, Bitcoin, the original Genesis block was mined, and this new kind of anonymous or pseudo-anonymous cryptocurrency, which led us on to 2013, CryptoLocker, the first strain of ransomware to demand payment in Bitcoin. And then, of course, 2016, Petya and NotPetya. Petya, standard ransomware. NotPetya actually did significant damage to the NHS, but it wasn't as reported as WannaCry, as we see there in 2017. NotPetya was wipeaware. So wipeaware looks like ransomware, but if you pay up, they wipe your files anyway. So extra nasty. And that was also interesting because the first instance of what we call a supply chain attack. So hackers broke into some accounting software called Medoc, replaced the nice update software with NotPetya. So when businesses came to work on Monday morning, instead of getting a nice new software update, they got some wipeaware and destroyed their systems, did huge amounts of damage. Obviously, 2017, WannaCry, I think 100 million pounds of damage in the NHS, 4 billion globally. Absolutely horrific piece of software. Very interesting how it was created, how it proliferated. The NSA in the United States, they created what we might loosely call a cyber weapon called Eternal Blue that was stolen by a group and leaked on the internet, a group called the Shadow Brokers. The third group came along called the Lazarus Group, and they weaponized that cyber weapon, turned it into ransomware, and distributed it. The interesting point there is that the Lazarus Group was a North Korean hacker group. So that's what we call most likely sanction busting, right? We can't get money. Let's create this ransomware and try and steal money. Going up to 2019 and through to today, the big things that we are seeing in the space. We are seeing what we call double and triple extortion. So hackers are encrypting your files, but also stealing copies of your data and using that as a threat. Pay up, otherwise we will release your files on the internet. And most recently, what we call ransomware as a service. Everything is as a service these days, right? And even ransomware is as a service. So Dragon Force, the group or the ransomware variant behind Marks and Spencer's and other attacks. Essentially, the business model is you have hackers who create ransomware. One group is called Dragon Force, and you can join the affiliate program and sign up and get a copy of the ransomware, and you go and deploy it. And any ransom that's paid, you keep 70% and Dragon Force gets 30%. So it's like a real world affiliate program. The group that actually did that damage, Scattered Spider, they were a separate hacker group and they were very good at social engineering. So they got a copy of Dragon Force and then they did their social engineering components to breach our British companies. So ransomware as a service. The other thing we're seeing is called initial access brokers. So on these same dark web forums, you can go and buy access to previously compromised systems. So hackers will just go around, break into as many systems as they can all around the world, and then sell access to those systems. What we're seeing is the rapid industrialization of the cyber underground economy. Whereas if you go back 10 or 15 years, you would have these small individual hacker groups that would do the hacking themselves or the ransomware themselves or the Trojans. Whereas today, the groups are getting very well organized. And we're even seeing it's almost like mergers and acquisitions in the real world. These big hacker groups, they're coming together because law enforcement is occasionally one-upping them. So they're coming together to unify their groups, to bring their strengths together to be even more damaging and even more prolific. And it only seems to be getting worse. Okay, so ransomware is half the problem. The other half is how hackers actually break in. And I want to briefly show you what it looks like. As I said, my colleagues and I, we have a long history in offensive cybersecurity being paid to break into systems. So I'm going to re-share my screen and let's share the whole screen. And what I want to show you now is, right, okay, so you have to use the power of imagination. Over here is a standard Windows computer, possibly at the NHS, and someone is sitting at their desk and they've received an email out of the blue that appears to come from their boss. And this person is called Rachel. Hi, Rachel. Just flagging, your list is non-compliant for 2026 IG refresher. Please see attached. You'll need to submit the form by close of business today. It's from Dean, the head of digital services. at the Lancashire Teaching Hospital, etc. And if we scroll down, there's a whole email chain of conversations about poor old Rachel, who hasn't done her training. Rachel probably has a million things to do. And all right, let's just get this out the way. What we're seeing here is a spear phishing email tailored to someone at the NHS. And quite likely the hacker did their homework. They went on LinkedIn, went on the Trust website, found out who works there, figured out the organizational structure, possibly bought a lookalike domain to impersonate Dean Patel here, or what we call business email compromise. Hackers broke into Dean's email, but the email wasn't that useful to go and deploy ransomware, so they impersonated him to send emails out to entice somebody to do something. It might be click a link, run a file, download something. But most hacks these days start with this almost human element. Calling up the help desk and resetting the password, sending a spear phishing email, sending a message on LinkedIn even. Hey, here's a, click this link to apply to a job or something. So here is, if you use your power of imagination, a Windows computer in the NHS. Over here is the hacker's computer. So I'm going to briefly show you what our world looks like. This is called Metasploit, some open source hacker software that allows us to do all kinds of things related to compromise and exploit development and whatnot. And I'm busy arming it now. Pretend that this computer is on the other side of the world, and here is NHS computer. And as this email says, please open this training document here. And it's just a Word document. What can go wrong with a Word document? And this particular attack is one that I know from chatting with some of your colleagues is the style of attack that we sometimes see against NHS trusts. So this Word document opens, and it's something about DocuSign, right? Well, we know DocuSign, that's how documents are signed. It's from my boss, it must be legit. And it's something about this document's been packed. To view it, please enable content, open button. Okay, that seems quite legit. There's a small warning about macros, but it's not red, it's only orange. I have to get this done by close of business today. There's a lot of pressure. I'm sure Rachel will just click enable content and then maybe click the open button. Oh, it was legitimate. It's air quotes decrypted the document. And then of course, she will go and read this long document, which is of course just all made up and complete nonsense. On this screen over here, exciting things are happening. What happened is there was a macro embedded inside this document, and when we enabled it, it downloaded a little Trojan, a little Metasploit Trojan, it executed it, and that connected out to my server, if you can pretend some server on the other side of the world over here. And now we have complete control of this system. And any commands I type will be executed on poor old Rachel's. There's Rachel PC, her system over here. Just to prove that it's not smoke and mirrors, let's take a screenshot. So we're literally sitting over her shoulder now, and anything that she sees now we can see right over her shoulder. And at this point, hackers would probably burrow in, get a bit deeper. There we go, fantastic passwords. Who hasn't saved clear text passwords somewhere on their computer? I tell you, every engagement I've been in, we've seen something like that. Yeah, there's Rachel's passwords, her NHS passwords, even her personal ones. At least they're pretty decent passwords, to be fair to Rachel. Now, the way hackers operate, they'll typically break into some edge device. Maybe it's a web server, or maybe it's compromising some support worker machine here, and then they'll burrow deeper into the organization, because the actual stuff they're interested in isn't on this person's computer, it's probably deeper in the organization. So as an example, I could run the show mount command here. What is Rachel's computer connected to? All kinds of network shares and things. Oh, here's one called NHS data. So let's go and look at W drive. And there's all kinds of files over here. And yeah, clinical data, blah, blah, blah. Ooh, some network configurations. A favorite we often find is old configuration files. So here's database conf.back. Grab a copy of that. Ooh, that looks interesting. Note, move this to a secure drive. Whoops, too late. And some SQL credentials to connect to some internal NHS system here. Keep in mind, it's all smoke and mirrors. It's just a demo. And the developer even left a connection string here for me. Wonderful. So we could copy that. And we're now about 3 machines deep. Paste that MySQL command. And now we're in some internal patient system. And my colleagues always say, Glenn, why do you run live demos and run live SQL commands? Well, it's more interesting as it's, let's start from patients. Let's just do a limit of 10. And oh no, bada boom, bada bang, all the internal patient data. Now the point there is just illustrative. Hackers break into some edge device, They burrow deep into the network. And this is typically days or months, but I don't have days or months to speak to you. So I'm short-circuiting it here, but get access to some internal systems and something that is of use to the hackers. They'll probably get to this database system, encrypt it, steal a copy, get out the back door, and go and deploy ransomware. Meanwhile, poor old Rachel, she is probably getting on with the day, with her work, and maybe she goes and logs into Rachel Smith, her staff record system here. And of course, there she is logging in, compliance, some messages. Let's just say they're all red. She can pretend she's done her homework. And then, of course, the hacker's point of view, we are grabbing keystrokes as well. So there's a username and a password. Password hunter 2, little nod to a little small hacker joke for those who are in the know. But the point being that we now have full control of her system. And as a hacker, we're now deep inside the organization, and we could have stolen this patient data. Final insult to injury. At this point, probably about a month or two down the line, once hackers are comfortable and they've understood your backups and your work processes, they will go and deploy ransomware. So there we go. All the files have been encrypted on the system, and there's a big scary ransom note. All of your files are gone. Please click that link to come and speak, with the hackers to try and, of course, negotiate a fee. Okay, that's a very quick insight. I wanted to show you what it actually looks like. So let's go back to the slides. Let's see, share a window and So that's what it looks like. Hackers will probably do some degree of social engineering. They'll break in, they'll burrow deep into your organization, and then the final thing they will do is deploy the ransomware. That is how this world works. So what are we going to do about it? It's not all doom and gloom. I'm going to give you some advice, part of which is showing you how Agger works. Now, in general, security is like an onion. There are lots of layers, lots of things you can do. Technically, we call that defense in depth. And as Chris said, I'm often on the news and the media. I was on BBC Breakfast on the red sofa, talking about basic cyber hygiene to apparently 6.5 million viewers. I'm glad they only told me that afterwards. I was just on a sofa chatting to these two lovely folks. But get the basics right, and I'm sure you're all well aware of that. We're not talking about that today. Today, I want to talk about defending on the endpoint, on your laptops, your workstations, your servers. It's almost the last line. Once hackers, do all the things to make sure hackers don't break in, do all the things to make sure they can't traverse your network, do all the things to stop all those points. But if and possibly when they reach your critical systems and they want to encrypt those systems and deploy ransomware, what are we going to do about it? Traditionally, we had AV many years ago, antivirus. Then we transitioned to what we call EDR, so protection on the endpoint, a little bit more intelligent, greater insight. The big players are mostly CrowdStrike and Microsoft MDE and a few others. I know the NHS, you all use MDE. MDE is a fantastic piece of software. It does a whole bunch of things really well. So it'll catch your generic viruses and Trojans and all those kinds of threats. But I can tell you with absolute certainty that it's not fantastic at stopping anything other than garden variety ransomware. And that's fine. That's just not their expertise. And in fact, we have insight into the underground where hackers talk about when they break into systems, what things are they worried about? What security software are they worried about? So they're a bit worried about CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike's the worst thing they can bump into. And they kind of go down the ladder here, Palo Alto, SentinelOne, Malwarebytes. Right at the bottom of what hackers are worried about is Microsoft Defender. And that's their point of view. That's from the underground. Hackers are talking about, well, break in somewhere and it's MDE. If we want to deploy ransomware, they're not too worried. And on the same underground forums I was talking about earlier, where you can get ransomware as a service, where you can get initial access brokers to buy access to systems. You can also buy software and solutions to bypass or disable all modern AVs and EDRs. Normally $500 to $5,000 to get this kind of software, which is a small drop in the bucket if you're going to extort an organization for between £5 and £50 million. So that software can be bought, deployed, bypass all those systems, and then deploy the ransomware. So let's talk about Agger Labs and our product Agger and how we are addressing these problems. The problem of ransomware and the problem of how hackers disable existing solutions. Because it doesn't matter if you have the best defense in the world, if hackers can just turn that off, well, that's not ideal. So Agger's different. We're not an EDR, but we run alongside your EDR. And we are what we would call a razor sharp ransomware kill switch. So we do one thing and we do it right. We just stop ransomware. Our architecture is, I've been told stop saying simple, it's elegant. Our architecture is elegant. We are a bunch of quite technical ex-offensive cybersecurity people who now are building very capable production-ready code, and our solution keeps things straightforward. Agger runs on your endpoint. It's a lightweight agent, 80 megs of RAM, 0.5% CPU. You can see on the left of the screen there, tiny little agent runs on the endpoint, and it just sits there in the background. No training, no baselining, no training periods, no learning, no configuration. Get up and running in about 5 minutes maximum, and that's across your entire estate, 1,000 machines, 10,000 machines. We push out via SCCM or Big Fix, run on the endpoint. You don't even need a reboot. And on the other side of the puzzle, we have our web panel where you can log in, manage the estate, see any alerts. But you don't need to do much, to be honest. You can just deploy and step away, and you'll have immediate protection. The problem we're trying to solve is, so one, ransomware and all that messy stuff, but also, I know you guys are busy. I know you have 1,000 things to worry about, and I don't want to create software that's going to bump into how you get your job done, bump into your existing software stack. So we run alongside everything. We've tested every AV, every EDR. We happily run alongside them, and we install in minutes, no reboots required, and you won't even know that we're there. The way I describe Agger is having 3 pillars. We have our core engine, our deception engine, and our anti-tampering engine. Now, our core engine runs in the kernel. We have a WHQL certified driver from Microsoft. Microsoft loves us. They think we write excellent code. And our core engine collects kernel telemetry via a mini filter that gets fed into a local deterministic engine. And that local deterministic engine determines if a running process is ransomware or not. And the beautiful part there is we've handcrafted that local model. Essentially, we distilled down the essence of every ransomware sample that's ever existed and built this model to look at the intrinsic behaviors of ransomware. So we're not looking for signatures. We don't, there's no updates, no signatures, nothing like that required on Agger. Once Agger is running, you are protected. So the core engine will create some kind of image of your system, the processes that are running, and determine if something is ransomware or not. No updates required. As an example, Lockbit 5 came out 2 or so months ago. We threw Lockbit 5 at Agger. It killed it on site. No signatures, no updates required, killed on site. And it's all local, so nothing goes to the cloud. What that means is it's very, very, very fast. We've got our detection down from about 200 milliseconds to 20 milliseconds, no files lost. Our second pillar is our deception engine. Does the same thing, detects and kills ransomware, just in a different way. Why not have a seatbelt and an airbag, keep you extra super duper safe? With our deception engine, essentially, we bait ransomware into interacting with us. So we lay traps on the file system, traps in the registry, traps in COM objects in the shadow file system. And we look for behavior that ransomware has to exhibit to be ransomware. Is it dropping a ransom note? Is it messing with a shadow file system? Is it trying to touch our canary files and encrypt them that are laying around in the documents folder? So Agger will create hidden files the user can't see, call it passwords.docx on the desktop. User can't see it, but ransomware will try and encrypt it, and it will be killed on site. The third pillar is our anti-tampering engine. And I'll say almost half our engineering has gone into the anti-tampering engine. The problem with existing solutions is that they can be disabled or bypassed. And we know the space incredibly well. Some of my colleagues sit on various technical advisory boards with some of those very big players in the space. And so we understand how the existing solutions work, but also from our collective decades of bypassing those solutions on red team engagements, we know how to bypass them, how to turn them off their weaknesses. So from day one, we built Agger to ensure that it is bulletproof. It cannot be stopped. In fact, our anti-tampering engine is so good that we've added the capability for Agger to look after your other critical software. So if you're running MDE, Agger will also keep an eye on MDE and not let hackers disable or bypass that. And not only that, if hackers try to mess with MDE or CrowdStrike or Agger itself, you'll get an alert saying, hey, by the way, someone just tried to hollow out this process or suspend this process or terminate this critical process. No other provider does that. So you get deep insight into your estate, almost an early warning system. And not only that, but we'll send back interesting telemetry on what patch levels are, what patch levels are installed, what software is installed, if you enable those features. So it's not just passive. We also have an active component of giving you a little bit of extra threat intelligence. The final point on the deception engine is we give what we call dynamic defense. The problem is that hackers will target an organization, figure out what defenses they have in place, and replicate those defenses in their own labs. So if it's MDE, they'll spin up an environment with MDE, and they'll tweak their ransomware until they can get past the protections. Because our deception engine is dynamic, every system is subtly different, the traps are subtly different. That means that even if hackers were to get a copy of our software, which wouldn't bother us, to be honest, because our level of obfuscation and the quality of our code is, we're not too worried about. But even if they did get a copy of Agger, it doesn't really matter, because even if they were able to somehow magically bypass us in their lab environment, every system is subtly different. So we call that dynamic defense, and no one else seems to do that. But don't take my word for it. We also have our SE Labs certification. So SE Labs, if you're not familiar, it's a third-party body, and they test and verify security software, everything from firewalls to EDRs to counter ransomware. It's very much hands-on. So they spent a solid month. I think they threw 104 ransomware samples at us, tried to disable us, zero-day ransomware, standard ransomware, old ransomware, and they could not get past us. So we got the highest rating, a AAA rating. So it's quite an achievement, and we're very, very proud of that. We're the only specific ransomware prevention platform that has this certification. So the long story short is, Agger, lightweight agent, runs on your endpoint. We do one thing and we do it well. We just stop ransomware. The way we do that is not like any other provider on the planet. We are the best at it. And we will happily coexist alongside your existing security stack. So we'll enhance MDE. We'll make MDE even better by making sure that if ransomware comes along, you are absolutely protected. Now let's have a look. What does that specifically look like? So I'm going to show you another quick demo here. Here is an instance of a Windows machine. Let's pretend it's at the NHS and it's running MDE. It's set up and it's running. And what we're going to do, just to prove to you that MDE is up and running, we're going to download a copy of Mimikatz. So Mimikatz is just some generic hacker software that all AV or EDR should detect. Let's drop Mimikatz. There you go. So Defender, stop that, so we know it is actually running. Now, here is a system with a bunch of very critical files in the documents folder, shall we say. And on the left is a bunch of ransomware. And here's a copy of Lockbit 3. It's not even that new, but it's a custom version that we've tweaked. Essentially, we opened it up, changed one byte to get past signature matching, detonated it, and all the files have been encrypted, even though MDE is running. We also signed it with a signing certificate. So those two small tweaks, we were able to bypass MDE, and all the files have been encrypted. And bada boom, bada bang, there's the ransomware Lockbit black. All your files are gone, stolen, encrypted. Let's try that again. Rewind the clock and have MDE plus Agger running. So there's Agger running in the background there. There are all the files again. And let's detonate that same Lockbit sample. So remember, it's a custom Lockbit, but not that difficult to create. Detonate it, bottom right-hand corner. Sorry, Agger has terminated this. Typically sub 20 milliseconds and no files lost. The demo is almost boring. We do one thing, we do it well. We just stop ransomware, lightweight agent, no configuration, no updates, no signatures, just set it up and you are good to go. And now MDE is enhanced and even better than before. There's MDE, there's Agger, detonate the ransomware, and you just get that little pop-up saying incident terminated. And if you don't want the GUI, the front end on your endpoints, that's fine too. You can disable that so you only get warnings in your panel or via the API. Now, the issue is that there are so many strains of ransomware. So don't worry about the details here. This is an excellent almost genealogy of ransomware and ransomware gangs from the folks at Orange Cyber Defense, where my colleagues and I used to work many years ago. And the point is that there are so many different strains that it's hard for existing solutions with their methodology to detect ransomware. They're great at signature matching. So there's known variants of ransomware from last year. Signatures are known by the hash or even a fuzzy hash, and those are fairly easy to detect and kill. But hackers can just grab any copy of any of these, and any hacker worth his salt beyond a script kiddie will get an existing piece of ransomware and slightly tweak it like we did in that demo. Literally open in a hex editor, change a few bytes, get a code signing certificate for maybe $500, sign it so it's digitally signed, and that will bypass most solutions. Just because the incumbents, the EDRs, it's not really their speciality, to be honest. And they're very good at signature matching and kind of almost the old style, almost AV way of doing things. And our approach is fundamentally different. So we're not looking at, so Lockbit 5 came along. We don't care how sophisticated it is, because Lockbit 5, it's very clever internally. The way it encrypts, different keys for every file. It's a very clever, nasty piece of software. But ransomware intrinsically has to behave in certain ways. So we care about the behavior, not the actual code, or if it's been changed or signed or anything else. So we have a very, very unique position. And we're the only ones who really do this, to be honest. And it's quite a hard thing for anyone else to replicate. And the big players, it's not really their bread and butter. They focus on their space in the EDR market. Now, as Steve Jobs used to say, but wait, there's one more thing. We also have legacy support. And I suspect at the NHS, that's probably something that's possibly quite important. And from day one, because you wanted to support public infrastructure, be it the NHS or CNI, water and power and things, where we know there are slightly older systems in place that can't be upgraded, legacy support from day one. So Windows 7, Windows 2000, not a problem. Linux as well, if you've got Linux machines, but legacy support, and we're quite proud of that. We're the only ones who offer that. So, in summary, Agger Labs, we do one thing, we do it well. We just stop ransomware. Our collective backgrounds are in offensive cyber, so we understand the space better than anyone else. The way our architecture works, we don't require any updates. So once you're installed, Agger is happy and running. There are very occasional updates, maybe once a month if we add a little bit of functionality or increase some efficiency somewhere, but you don't need updates to stay protected. There are no signatures like other software. Once you're up and running, you're protected. We have legacy support all the way back to Windows 7, Windows 2000. We have 0-day protection. It's almost our biggest selling point. And that's the biggest threat you will face, because hackers will use some unknown variant by tweaking existing ransomware to get past your existing solutions. So 0-day protection, even something custom and new and unique, not a problem. No cloud dependence, so all the compute happens locally on your endpoint. Nothing goes up to the cloud. That also allows us to scale. If you want to roll out 1 million endpoints tomorrow, not a problem. Things will scale very gently on our side, but the impact in your systems is minimal. As I said, 80 megs of RAM, 0.5% CPU. We won't bump into existing software. We'll complement your EDR. We'll enhance MDE. We'll make it even better by doing things that MDE cannot do. And of course, we're third-party tested and verified by SE Labs. I want to show you a more interactive demo, so I'm going to log into the panel in a second. But I'm sure you're all wondering, well, Glenn, how much does it cost? We keep our pricing quite flat, quite transparent, generally £2 per workstation or laptop per month, £10 per server per month. That obviously scales when the more endpoints that you would sign up. Chris will tell you that they're running some really good deals at the moment for, if you sign up this month, chat to Chris. And what I would propose is that you go on a journey. It can be quite daunting or challenging if you want to roll out some new piece of software across your entire estate. If you want to do that, absolutely, we've done it before. We'll happily support you to roll out to 100,000 endpoints tomorrow if you want. But if you're not feeling that, well, let's go on a journey. Day one, protect your key assets. Let us get up and running on just your servers. Pick 10 servers, we'll protect those. Let's make sure they're good. And we'll scale up that journey as we go along. We also have what we call baseline mode. So baseline mode will allow you to install Agger, enable baseline mode. What that means is Agger won't actually terminate anything. It will just tell you, hey, I was going to terminate this thing. Should I whitelist it or not? So run Agger for a week, 2 weeks, a month, and just let it run in baseline mode. It won't bump into anything. It won't terminate anything, just in case there are any false positives. It's very, very, very seldom we get false positives, but just in case you're feeling nervous, you can put it in baseline mode just to make sure you have that extra degree of comfort and security and make sure that Agger is not going to bump into anything at all. We've rolled out to some very big, quite prestigious companies. Our rollout process is, it's perfect, I would say. Our support is excellent. We will take you on this journey. So I want to just briefly show you. You saw it in the demo earlier, but just to show, oh no, it's logged me out. Well, I can show you the login. So you go to your web portal and you log in and you get a code, which will hopefully pop up on my phone in a second. And so this is the web panel, but keep in mind that we do have the ability to deploy internally. So if you did want to run the server internally, and of course, as I mentioned, we don't require cloud compute. That means that you can run in an air-gapped environment. So if critical systems in an air-gapped environment, Agger can run 100% offline, and that will not be a problem at all.
Ben, you're not sharing, sorry.
Oh no, shall I pretend that I meant not to share? Let me just log into my account here. Anyway, you didn't miss anything. Absolutely, you didn't miss anything. I was logging back into my account because I got logged out. Cool, so look, here is Aggie. Log into the web portal. And here's the dashboard. Like any standard C2 incidents endpoints, you would start by going to installers. You would download the installer. So here's our latest one, got Windows 7, 2000, Linux, Mac. So grab what you want, download it. You would go and grab your license, copy that, and installation takes, yeah, as I said, maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Either double click the MSI, paste the license key, or here I've installed it on the command line. So there's command line installation. You can use the quiet and passive flags, and your users won't even know it's been installed. It can just run in the background. So there's Agger happily running, and whoops, and there's a folder. Where are we? A folder appropriately called Biohazard, full of nasty ransomware, and we can just detonate some samples, and Agger kills it. It's far too quick to even notice. We're sub 20 millisecond these days. You will lose no files at all. Go terminated. Interstellar is an interesting one. This is what we call a zero-day piece of ransomware. So nothing else on the market will stop this because other solutions rely on signatures and fuzzy heuristics and things that just don't work that well. But of course, we try and detonate that, and it is immediately terminated. And if we go across to our endpoints here, so here are all my endpoints for my demo. Oh, there you go. Windows 7, of course, so running the older systems. There's Windows 10 Pro server. Any version of any software, we've got your back. So here's that demo one there. You just click on that, and yeah, here are all the incidents. A lot of demos recently, it seems, that all the ransomware samples being terminated. If we click on any of them, you'll get a whole bunch more information. Now, everything that you see here is ingestible by our API. So if it's into the IT health dashboard or any other system that you have, you can consume everything via the API. As I said, the demo is almost boring. That's it. You try and detonate ransomware over here, gets terminated, the information comes back here, you get an alert either per endpoint or globally here, and you'll get an email, and of course, if you want to ingest via the API, and of course, all the standard C2 web panel things, your users, your events, various configurations. We had a client sign up recently, and they were comparing a bunch of different products, and they assigned a week to do it, and they had 1 day per product. So day one, maybe a Sentinel one or CrowdStrike or something. Day two was Agger, and the contact phones me up at 9:15, and he's like, "So Glenn, I've installed it. I ran a few ransomware samples that killed it. Do I need to configure anything? What else can I do?" It's like, "Well, nothing. Take the day off." And he was very surprised because all the other software he tested, he needed a half a day of training to get up to speed, half a day of configuring, and then he could run the tests. And we feel your pain on that, which is why from day one, we engineered Agger to make sure there is no pain. It is seamless to install, and you get immediate, very good protection with no configuration. And with that, I shall stop talking, and let me just say stop sharing. Very happy to take any questions. If there's anything that I can't answer, I've got some colleagues on the line who can help me out. But thank you so much for your time, and I would love to engage with you and find out how we can help enhance your MDE and keep you safe from ransomware.
Thanks very much, Glenn. As ever, brilliant demo. Thank you. Very engaging. We've had some questions. Vlad's kindly answered them kind of in the stream, and some good feedback. One interesting point that's been raised is whether we can evidence some specifics in terms of a benchmarked endpoint. We can take that away and we can work on that, and maybe we might need to just work with a few NHS colleagues to kind of develop that.
Yeah,
I think one of the things that we all see in this environment is we go into technology and it's like, oh, does anybody want to run a POC? And it's something we've talked about for a long time. And when the baseline concept came along, it kind of removed that, because it is a kind of a POC, but it's not the same way as a POC. Basically, it can go in, it can monitor, it can report back, but it's not doing anything, and that can happen very quickly. So again, if anybody's on the call that'd be interested in that, then please get in contact with us at IT Health. We're more than happy to, set up some calls just to work through that. So and clearly, we want to see this technology deployed as wide as possible, because we've spoken to a number of different people at the centre and the regions about complementary technology and how we can augment and improve protection on top of what's already been provided, in essence, free of charge, like MD as an example. So we're keen to do that. Glenn mentioned the pricing. What we have done is work with the guys at Agger to come up with some bundles, because clearly the deployment methodology might differ on each organizational infrastructure. So it might be that it's a case of just putting it on those edge devices. It might be a case of deploying it on critical infrastructure. It might be a case of wanting to deploy everywhere. But of course, the other thing is, if this were to happen and this horrible realization were then to take place, then it can be rolled out very quickly across the estate. So that's a good position to be in. But so we are looking for places to test and work with. More than happy to work with anybody on this call or any other colleagues. Thanks for that, Chris, by the way. Chris has already put some interesting information on there, which we'll review. So the bundles we've put together are hopefully going to be cost effective and attractive, but within that we can blend a number of servers, legacy or not, a number of endpoints, legacy or not, to give you that level of protection that you want, based on any budget that may or may not be available. We know it's tight, but we're obviously trying to do what we can, and again, we've got a good reputation for that. I'm just going to have a quick look, see if there's any more questions. Got some good feedback as well, which is good.
Excellent.
Defender is based on smart screen, pre-exit reputation based. Okay, so yeah, Chris is typing, he keeps typing. So I'll try and, Chris, what we'll do is we'll review that, and we'll come back to you on that one. Link to the website, yes, we can.
Good call.
Yeah.
Agger-labs.com, and also feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, Glenn Wilkinson. And of course, reach out to Chris, and IT Health will get you up and running. I think the long story short is we want to build a successful business, but also we just really fed up with ransomware. We want to make a difference, and we love the opportunity to show you what we've built, because we're super proud of it and it works, and we're really trying to get it out there. And just personally, the NHS is quite a precious thing to all of us, and to have the opportunity to help you better defend yourself, we would absolutely love that. So if it's a POC and we can show you how we work, or if you want to roll out, we'll roll you out. But any way that we can support you, chat to Chris. We're very happy to chat pricing options, see what technologies you have, and just find a path forward. Because we don't want it to be too late. And ransomware is a serious problem. We want to have a successful business, but more than that, we want to stop this ransomware threat in its tracks. And hopefully a year from now, we've defeated the ransomware problem and we move on to our next company. But I would love to find a way to work with you guys. All developed in-house. Yes, it is. So developed in-house. We're UK based, UK sovereign. I think it's a great selling point of us. We've resisted any kind of US incorporation. We want to be a US company, a UK company. We want to look after UK companies. A big push for UK sovereignty. But I think it's David from Croydon there. We are developed in-house locally by some of the best hackers and engineers in the world.
Good stuff. Well, can logs be shipped to Seam?
Yep, yes. Everything that you see. So in far more detail than I showed you, you get logs on both incidents, but also events. So events are non-critical things that are going on. So if a user is created, or if a new canary file is created, or any kind of system information. So you get all of that as well as the incidents. So everything you see in the web portal that can be exported, shipped to wherever you want. And if you're running air-gapped, you can consume local logs, or we can write some wrappers for you to consume that locally. But our architecture is inherently quite straightforward. You can consume our data however you want and whatever works best for your systems.
So effectively, easy to deploy, easy to manage, great at protecting, good value for money, easy to integrate. What's not to like?
Yeah. And the CEO is a decent guy out here.
Yeah. Well, there you go as well. Yeah. I think that's the other point that you raised earlier as well, guys. That your colleagues, CEOs, to a point, is sits on some of the most high level and strategic boards. Is kind of also involved in working with people like NCSC on developing strategies to protect our national boundaries as well. So there's a lot going on underneath and wider than just the product, but it does help make sure the product stays at the forefront of people's minds.
Yeah, very,
cool.
Very good point. Where we're not just a product; we've got those deep insights.
Absolutely right. Yeah, we know everybody's busy, so we're happy to stay on if there's any more questions. Equally happy for people if people want to leave. That's absolutely fine as well. Get 10 minutes back. How often do you get that in a day? But yeah, if you've got any questions, Emma's one of my colleagues has put the survey up in the chat as well. Be good to get some feedback on that. We can then come back to you. So we will be sending out a recording and a copy of the slides. I think what I will do, Glenn, also is get some narrative about the baseline, and we'll include that in the email that goes out as to give people that uptake on that, and then we can pick up from there if people want to set out. Great stuff. Good. Again, thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Vlad, for answering questions in the background. Thank you for colleagues who've helped put this on today. But most of all, thank you for everybody for joining. Hope it's been useful and enjoyable. And if you want any more information, get in touch with us at IT Health. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.